Go Black Podcast. Go Black.
My name is Marvyn Harrison. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. So I'm going to set the scene. This is someone that I've seen and observed from afar. Very voyeuristic of me, watching everything that he's been doing for the last couple of years. I get invited to a dinner, I turn up, I love dinners, and there's Caribbean food that's been reimagined with a moosh boosh in there. I think there's a couple of things that I've never seen before, but let's imagine Caribbean food being reimagined in a fine dining style. There's a room full of amazing people who are all supporting this wonderful human being, and he's an illustrator, and it's Mr. Jordan Stevens. So Mr. Jordan Stevens is a writer and performer, best known for being one half of pop duo Rizzle-Kicks. Achieving fame at the age of only 19, Jordan is now a writer, performer, and campaigner. He's also very passionate about books and reading. The Missing Piece is his first picture book, and having publicly been open about his own mental health struggles throughout last year, has been very active in creative awareness around the stigma attached to it and helping young people open up about how they feel. His mental health campaign, I Am Whole, reached the 120 million people online and made enough of an impact to be mentioned in the House of Parliament. Jordan, is that accurate, fair? Is that exactly who you are?
That's good. I think, yeah, I mean, it's a mental health campaign that continues to tick along. And yeah, I've been knocking about since a teenager, do you know what I mean?
So first, tell me more about the I Am Whole campaign. What actually happened and what spurred it on?
The I Am Whole campaign was just an example. It was just serendipity, I guess. I was making music that wasn't Rizzle-Kicks. I was making music with a little band that I made called Wildhood. This is after, well, kind of during Rizzle-Kicks, but I was just kind of exercising a different creative side of myself. The music is almost the antithesis of Rizzle-Kicks, actually. We made a song called Whole with a W, and it was about depression. I didn't realise it would be about depression until I'd kind of written it, and I met a guy, and the guy was making a TV show, and I said, hey, listen to this music, you can put it in your show. And then at the same time, someone from the NHS contacted him and said, do you want to do a mental health campaign? And he had this song, and then it all happened at the same time, and then boom, suddenly we did what we thought was a local mental health campaign for like NHS Brighton and Hove, and because it just so happened that this guy, this producer Matt Campion, who's the co-founder of I Am Whole, he lived in Brighton. Obviously I spent my teen years in Brighton, so it all kind of synced up, and it just blew up, you know. A lot of people wanted to get involved. A lot of, I suppose, influential people were wanting to draw this circle on their hand and push this hashtag, and you know, it blew up, man. So yeah, so we did some cool stuff. We did a massive gig called Music for Mental Health. We've started Digital Detox Day, which is, you know, encouraging people to get off their phones for a day. And yeah, I like it, man. Listen, you know, service, it's just service, and yeah. I'm glad that happened, and the feeling of being of service is pretty special.
Yeah.
And so that's just how it is. And in terms of my own openness, I am an impulsive person. I've always just spoken. I'd like to believe it's honest, but it's definitely impulsive. I just say what's on my mind, you know. Yeah. And so when we enter into the discussion around mental health, where actually for men especially, most of the issue is not speaking. Someone like me becomes like, I don't know, I stand out, I guess, on the basis that it's just, you know, if someone asks me about my mental health, I will try and answer. Do you get what I'm saying? Or like my physical, spiritual health, just because I am impulsive, and I've always been like that. I just say what's on my mind. Yeah.
You see, when like you say you're impulsive, have you ever understood where that comes from? What that means? That's just not just a natural behavior. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been diagnosed with ADHD a couple of times, and they say, you know, from videos I watch online and stuff, there's definitely impulsivity is definitely considered a symptom of ADHD. I was very skeptical about ADHD in my teens. When I first was diagnosed, I didn't really take much notice of what that meant or whatever else, but as I've got older, I've realised that my brain does work a little differently to some other people,
Yeah.
And so actually, as I get older, you know, I'm actually learning to hold my tongue a little bit as I take more care of my body and my mind, and I understand my own responsibilities and accountabilities a little more. But I still do believe in openness and
Yeah.
vulnerability and the
How
power of
this is interesting. So I haven't been diagnosed, but you know, the more I understand about ADHD, I feel like I am. When I followed Instagram accounts probably similar to you did, and when they, you know, when someone explains your lived experience and it's not nothing to do with you,
mad.
they don't know you, but it's like literally your life being presented back to you. What actually made you aware of it from the beginning? Have you just always known yourself to be this way? Did something actually happen? You said diagnosed a multiple times, so it sounds like you've had a few.
Twice. Yeah, I think I can't remember if I've said this already on a podcast, but I think I remember I went on a trip to New York with a friend and with a few friends, and I took some of I mean, everyone in America's dosed up, right? Everyone's like medicating ADHD or not, and they had some ADHD medication, and I just took it because I was just on one generally, and and then suddenly I was given this ability to think about what I wanted to say. Like so like this thought would come to my head, and I'd get this extra step, which was like, do you want to say that? And then I just chose not to say anything. And then for that whole day, I remember my friends were like, you know, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Do you know what I mean? And then I honestly, hand on heart, I turned to a friend and was like, I genuinely asked them, do you think about what you're saying before you say it? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, like, I really thought people just said what was on their mind, and then I thought that people who weren't saying anything just weren't thinking anything.
So the reason why I'm laughing is because one thing that I noticed is I never asked anybody how they processed or how they experienced the world with any real understanding. So I just thought my way of processing was the way. I thought everybody did the exact same thing, chose to do things or not. And so I would say my compulsions are more in just like action. Like I won't just sit with an idea. I'm gonna go do it. So all my ideas come to life. So people see the manifestation of all my dreams, fears, thoughts in reality. I create them, and the gift is that I provide great things to the world. I often have done over the last like 20 years, but the curse is sometimes at the cost of myself. So like my rest, my sleep, my self-care, my own mental well-being, all those things usually go out of the door for this idea of like a mission. And literally only 2 years ago was I able to like just be like, I could do this, but I'm not.
Do you see the mission through?
Yeah, always.
Well, I'd argue that perhaps you don't have ADHD.
Actually, the way to frame it is, they all come to life, they don't all sustain.
Yeah.
So at the point of launch, if I get it to launch, it's great, and that's normally because I avoid all frictions to my ideas as possible. So if you're someone that's around me who's like, I don't think that's a good idea, you won't exist around me at all. Yeah. I don't need that stuff. But once it comes to life, after that point, I lose interest.
Right.
I can't sustain it beyond that point. That's when I need people around me to pick up my ideas and make them sustainable. So all my companies are run by other people. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe we live in a world where I think ADHD is now created. We actually, from what I understand, and the professors and podcasts I've listened to, there's no definitive idea actually about what, I mean, people believe you're born with a lack of neurons, and neurons are underfiring to the executive functioning part of the brain. That's what people believe. Some people believe that you are born with a propensity to have it, and actually you develop it over your childhood, depending on the circumstances you grew up in. And then nowadays, people are saying just because of the amount of screen time we have and the intensity of everything, that you can just develop that shit. Like people are just, we've got adults who are just developing ADHD.
Yeah, it's funny because there's more. Do you find that because of so much information out there now, and how probably long you've been experiencing this, you've just come up with a more simple sentence as to what you're experiencing, rather than going down the rabbit hole of all those things that it could be?
Oh, what, the sentence being ADHD or not?
Yeah, just like I have it, it's a part of my life versus like trying to explain it. Have you ever found yourself in a rabbit hole trying to explain it to people?
Oh. Nah, I don't think so. Like I say, like, you know, I think it's a big spectrum, and I think people find themselves in various stages along this spectrum. My actual belief is that this idea of normal, I mean the actual what would the word be? Slogan for the I Am Whole campaign is "There is no normal." That's the idea. This idea that, you know, ADHD is considered neurodivergent, which infers that there's some kind of neurotypical. Well, that's what they call it. Yeah, neurotypical. I'm not sure I believe that. I think people who I know that there are people who don't struggle, let's say, with certain parts of their emotions, or they don't struggle with like tidying up or processing certain things, and that's great. But I just think it's a spectrum, and everyone exists on it, and you have to work around the individual struggles that we have. You know, like the only time I ever find myself explaining it is when I struggle with something. Like, for example, with mess, organization, like on my life, I genuinely, like, when I look at clutter, I don't process it in the same way. This is from experience. Like, I used to think it was an excuse, and I've tried to approach it in that way. But actually, when I see other people in my life approaching clutter and what they do, it's. But to the same extent, like, once I move a few things around, treat my body nicely, go to the gym, eat well, I look at things and it's easier. So it's, you know, I'm trying to find the line between, you know, identifying as something and not allowing that to apprehend me, just my improvement. You know, I'll involve it at times. I'll be like, yeah, listen, you know, I struggle with this. That's it, really.
And do you find that there's a genuine understanding and empathy in the people that are around you now and historically?
It depends on the person. It really depends on the person. I think people who don't have ADHD will find it confusing that we find it confusing to do certain things, and, you know, but similarly, I find it, I can't believe that they like there's blessings and curses. You know, I can also do like 5 or 6 different creative projects at once, which blows people's minds. So you know, I don't know. It just is what it is. It is what it is. And some people, yeah, I mean, like, listen, like, say for example, if I'm going through a big step, like, again, organizing tires me out, right? And let me just say, I get overwhelmed and I get tired. And to someone who knows that finishing a task feels good, that's weird to them. Why would you stop 20% into the task, you know? But then I have to explain that it's just I do it differently. Things like, for example, there have been times historically where it's taken me like 2 days to do 1 load of washing. And only reason why is because in this house anyway, the way it's set up, there's like 5 stages to doing that. And if I'm overstimulated with other ideas or other things, I'll get distracted. So you know, emptying a basket, separating the colours, that's one task.
It's a task.
Yeah, so that's one potential point of distraction. Rounding those colours up, putting in a basket, taking it to the washing machine, that's almost one task. You'd think going into it would be straight away, but then loading it up, getting the thing. There's so many variables, you know what I mean? Making sure if I've got the tablets and the things and the conditioner and whatever, then it's a bit more seamless. Then you're washing it, and you got to go back to it. You got to dry it out. You got to fold it back and put it back. Like, there's a lot of stages where I could just I'll forget I've even put it in.
Yes, yeah.
But I also am learning. I like the feeling at the other end. I like the feeling of dry washed clothes.
yeah.
You know, but then my girlfriend, she just like, she can just do it. Like, she just does it. She does it more efficiently than I do anyway.
It's funny because I always found and I didn't know what was happening, but I realized that it made me realize that I feel like I've never seen people until I realized that I was actually different. Like, I realized that I was normal and I just made myself right for many years.
Yeah.
That way. And like, you're weird for like doing it in a different way. And it's only when I realized that I'm actually different, and my capacity for creativity, hyper focus, all those things meant that like I was different, that I just then created empathy for other people who can't work. Because if I'm inspired, I can work for like hours, like 16 hours, and keep going and going, and I don't be distracted. But then when I'm not inspired, like my thing is admin, anything to do with life admin. I'll get car fines and I just won't pay them for like 30
don't.
Then they get escalated.
Same. lack of interest.
Yeah,
It's mad. I never thought I would have so many engaging conversations about ADHD. Actually, it's so good because, like I say, with my girlfriend, we work together on things, and there are some things that I'm much better at, or ADHD helps me, you know, or like switching a situation up, or looking at a unique way of doing something, you know, or looking at things from a lateral perspective, and at the in the same breath, like she helped me discover the Pomodoro method, you know. She just like where she'd put on a timer 30 minutes if I'm looking through some boxes, whatever else, and it just totally clicked with me, and then I was suddenly able to access this level of organization I never had before. And then what's mad is, because the way ADHD works is all dopamine related, once I get that hit of dopamine and I feel good, I want to go back to the task. I don't even need the Pomodoro method. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying with like the washing, for example. There's a difference between doing it in my house and her place, because at her place there's literally less distance between the wash basket and the washing machine, so I'm like more engaged with that task, because it's like, I don't know, I can see the end there. Anyway, I need to stop talking about washing, to be honest. I think
no, it's a really good analogy.
I'm not sure anyone wants to hear me talking about washing anymore.
No, it is. It's the perfect analogy of why all my relationships would break down, because they would see me do something incredible in the world, and the most simplest of things would be like, I can't, no. And they really be being lazy. So, but
it's mad. It gets mad with stuff like that too for men, because a lot of the time as well, I was worrying that I'm playing into the other side of the more gendered kind of, you know, like, I think there's an unfortunate trend, you know, of like young men who haven't grown up or can't look after themselves, or don't create a home. You know what I'm saying? Like this kind of this kind of, and I didn't want to fall into this, you know, I'll go and explore, and you know, this kind of domestic thing. I never wanted to fall into that, so there was that added stress where I'm there going like, I can't be someone who, I don't need someone picking up after me and that. So it's a difficult balance, because you don't want to be that guy. No one wants to be that guy. Yeah,
it's I think, like, and you mentioned this before, whereas like you talked about creating safe spaces for women, and again, very similarly in my life, trying to create those safe spaces for women really intentionally, challenging things that you observe, but then also just having a way of being on blind spots that I've challenged women with my way of being, like in relationships, them trying to connect with me on like, you need to do this thing, and I'm like, it's not. But like, and then I'm sitting there being like, no, but logically I get what you're saying, so I know that I'm not doing this because I'm a man and I don't think I should be doing these things. Literally, there's no inspiration to do it, so it will sit there undone for weeks on end, and it's not personal.
You're really out here talking about chores. You're saying it's a different, bro. It's mad, bro. But it's, you know, it's high key unacceptable. You know, like that. There's that we have to find ways, you know, around it, because we're in danger of falling into the tropes. Although I will say, right, while we're on this topic, that I've got a lot of female friends, and some of them are messy as fuck, bro. Like, let's just get this straight. Do you know what I'm saying? Each to their own, boss. Like, one of my closest guy mate has OCD, and he is the cleanest fucking person on this planet, right? And then on the flip side, I walk into, because it's more to do, I think, with the wiring of the mind. If you're creatively inclined, or like, you know, like you're overusing the right hemisphere of the brain, that shit can be a mess. It can be a mess. You know, it's just finding. We got to find, individuals have to find ways around their obstacles.
Yeah, that's wrong. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, God, I know. What are we? 21 minutes in. We ain't even spoke. We're supposed to be 25 minutes long. We just can't help but babble, innit? I mean, ADHD is fascinating. The book, the kids' book, it's called The Missing Piece. Illustrated by Beth Suzanna, a phenomenal illustrator. I think. Well, this is. I was about to say. I know this is her first published kids' book. Her first kids' book. And yeah, you know what? I wrote this idea years and years ago. It's a story I've written to myself about constantly trying to complete things, the feeling of completion, never being satisfied by completion. And it never seemed like a long enough story to be anything other than a kid's book, to be honest. So I started asking around, like genuinely just tweeted, I think, just if anybody knew any kids book authors or anything like that, kids book agents. Was introduced to this woman called Julia Churchill, and she is great. I told her the idea for the book. She thought it was great. I wrote it down. She didn't think that was great. She asked me to redraft it, and it took me 3 years to redraft this, because what did I say about attention, bro? That was enough for me to get distracted. I didn't even understand the concept of a redraft. That's where I was in my ADHD journey. The idea of redrafting anything was wild to me. I was like, yo, I did it once, it's done, it's finished. It's not. 3 years later, I looked at this idea and I'd overcomplicated it, and so I deleted half of it, and we sent it off, and you know, we got loads of offers to put this book out, and actually to make more. I've got a 3-book deal with Bloomsbury. I've written the 2nd book for sure. The 3rd book is half done, mainly because I can't decide between ideas. But you know, I want to write kids books that mean something to the adult, and it's wild seeing an idea I had so many years ago suddenly come to life. A lot of the back and forth happened over lockdown, and Beth has the most incredible eye for color, and anyone who gets the book will see it. It's color therapy too, and that's what I wanted. I was shown 5 or 6 illustrators versions of this character Sunny and her grandma. I was shown them, and some of these drawings were ridiculously well drawn, beautifully. Do you know what I mean? Like fine detail. Like I couldn't believe it. But bro, you know, I gotta be real. I remember Bloomsbury were like, you know, so who do you think? And I was like none of these. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't want a kid's book that was just drawn well. I wanted a kid's book that felt different. Like you get this book and it's a different experience to other kids' books. And then they showed me this scrapbook of this young woman, Beth Suzanna. I think she's like 23 or something. And I looked at these colours and I was like, yeah, you know.
So, is there a correlation between, you know, your mental wellness or neurodivergency and what you've created? And I know you talked about color therapy, but is there any synergy between those experiences?
Yeah. You know, the book is I think is an observation of my experience of wanting to feel mentally balanced in a hyper productive world, you know, a world where we are constantly encouraged to create and earn money, and then it's just onto the next one and onto the next one and onto the next one. And you know, I found the best way to channel that story was through a kid's book. You know, that's just how it came to be. And yeah, it's definitely about my own relationship with completion.
And then in terms of like the message you want the reader to have, so if you met a young person in the future and they said they read your book, what would you hope landed for them?
Oh, well, it's the fable, or like the moral of the story is there's a couple of energies I wanted to bring. the kind of moral is an old moral. It's the idea that happiness is a journey, not a destination. But I think that can never be told enough. And the idea of incompletion, you know, that our acceptance of incompletion actually being completion, I think is just great. The second that you are comfortable, or the second that we are comfortable with imperfection, incompletion, this, you know, because this surrender to the infinite, do you know what I'm saying? Like the ongoing fluid, like everything's just moving. There's the only thing promised to us in life is change, you know. And I think that once we can be comfortable with that, life feels lighter, at least. So that's the one vibe. And then the other vibe is a homage to my grandmother, a homage to Beth's grandmother, and you know, I would like somebody to be reminded of how important of a role that our elders have in our lives, and and for us to not disregard the presence of the wise and our mentors,
No, that makes
our
sense.
elders. My grandmother, staying at my grand's house, well, both grand's houses were refuges for me as a child, you know. It's, you know, it was just this hug, cozy, you know, apple pie vibes, you know.
What if if you had all the parents of the children who read your book, what would you say to, like, in a room, and you were standing in front of a lectern and you were explaining to them what's important for them to observe about their children? Like, is there something that you would want to say?
I don't know, because I'm not a parent, you know. I can't imagine how tough it might be for raising a child in the modern world too. But I mean, listen, I don't know what people's vibes are with the elderly or with the intergenerational. But I mean, I do see it. My friends who have children, you know, their grandparents are big parts of their lives. I would just be like, yeah, great. That's how it should be. Never underestimate the power of that for the child to have that. I really, really believe in that. In it taking a village to raise a child. The more people attached and comfortable and supportive of a child, the better. I think. I really, really do believe that.
No, I hear you.
So that's what I'd say.
Jordan, where can we get this book? Where can we get your book, and where can we find you after this?
The book is out now, I guess. When it comes out, I mean, you just type the missing piece into type the missing piece into Google, and then you can. I mean, ideally, people would buy the book from like a local independent bookstore. That would be wicked. You can order in a kid's book to any store. Bookshop.org, I think, helps with that. Obviously, it's available on Waterstones, and then, you know, Amazon if need be. But that the missing piece. That's all you got to type in, man. Jordan Stevens, and then me. Yeah, I'm online, social media, Jordan F. Stevens. That would find me on most accounts. You know, whether or not I'll still have social media when you search it, that's up for debate, because
what is your attitude towards social media? Do you check out often?
I hate it. Yeah. Like, I can't be real, which is wild, because which is wild because I Am Whole, for example, social media was a huge part in that reaching people. You know, a hashtag reached people, and people felt less alone, and on that level it's beautiful, and social media could be a tool, you know. It could be, and should be, and can be. I guess it can be, but you know, I do have concerns over who benefits from my use of social media, and I have a rebellious spirit, and I don't like feeling trapped, you know. So I'm prone to. But then I do have more diplomatic people around me that encourage me to just see it as a tool, and that's it. I'm actually not. I don't get too fixated on using it. Like I mean, I go on Twitter mindlessly. I don't even really care. I kind of go on to just check football transfers, and then I end up reading like, about some non-expert's idea on the current state of the world. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I wonder. I do think about just life without it all the time. You know. But would anyone? Would I exist, Marvyn?
So it's a big question. You probably ascended at the point just before social media was everything.
Yeah.
But now it's where you capture all your fans. Because before, anyone that worked in music or as an author didn't own the relationship to their fans in any way, shape, or form.
No.
You kind of partially do now through the proxy of a platform, but you know, that would never be possible for us. Like, if you weren't on Smash Hits in '92, you just weren't famous. That was it, basically. And if you were famous. It was that simple. It's like there wasn't any chance of like recklessness anywhere else. It was like Smash Hits, The Sun, you know, the same 5 places you would go.
Yeah, that's it.
And I don't know if it's better or worse by democratizing the platforms, because now everyone's in charge of what they put out there, and they can do absurd things to maintain their light in the white hot space, which is usually problematic.
It's so wild. Attention economy, that's it. You know what I mean?
Brilliant. Jordan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much
bro,
for telling us more about your book. Hopefully everyone goes out and go and get it. And yeah, and definitely go give some feedback to him on social media, even if he's not on there. Tweet it.
I will probably be, just for a couple of weeks at least.
Brilliant. I'm sure that make your publishers happier that you're actually going to be online to receive your blessing. You know what's really interesting? So my book came out about 2 months ago, and it's the emotional responses you get from people who read it and it lands. Yeah. It's the best feeling on earth. You may have had a version of that through your music. Someone may have heard a song, but it's that part when you find someone's like, I've got it, and they read it and they got their child like screaming parts of their book to you. You're like, actually, this is worth knowing that this is having this level of impact.
Okay, fine. You convinced me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jordan. I really appreciate you. And good luck with the book as well.